dungeons, politics, magic, and what happens when you don't adapt a manga properly. It's the review of Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic. Magi was a 2-cour originally airing from October 7th, 2012 to March 31st, 2013, and is very loosely based on the Arabian story 1001 Nights. Magi has 3 main characters in the story. Aladdin, the main protagonist. He's a mysterious boy with his friend Ugo inside of his flute, and that's eventually found out to be one of the legendary Magis. Magis are legendary magicians that have the power to change the world. A Magi's main job is to choose a king vessel and lead their vessel to become a king. The deuteragonist is Alibaba Saluja, a young man who is the former prince of Balbad, the owner of the fire djinn Amon, and is Aladdin's best friend and king vessel. Finally, the last main character is Morgiana, or Morg. Hey, let's go with that. A fanalist who was a slave when she first met Aladdin and Alibaba, but is now free and one of Alibaba's household members. The story starts off with Alibaba as a simple chauffeur, and while getting ready to leave, he meets Aladdin, who's eating his client's goods in the back of his cart. During the night, we find out that Alibaba is a dreamer. He has a dream of capturing a dungeon which is known to bestow wealth, fame, and most importantly, a metal vessel that has a djinn inside of it, which has great power. Now, this is what first got me interested in Magi, and what I believe is one of its selling points, of having a huge adventure in conquering dungeons all around the world. Eventually, Aladdin and Alibaba meet Morg, a young girl who happens to be a slave and is a fanalist, a tribe of red-haired beasts with insane amounts of strength and have a history of becoming slaves. Seriously, these guys are strong as shit, and you'll probably die if you have sex with them. After Aladdin destroys her chains with Ugo and tries to set her free, which is against the law, both Aladdin and Alibaba are forced to leave after making a scene. Once they finally go into the dungeon, they are soon followed by Jamil, who's the rich slave owner of Morg and was told that Magi would make him king. Once Alibaba finally captures the dungeon with a little bit of struggle, like almost dying, he finally gets his metal vessel and Amon, and this is where Aladdin discovers that he is a Magi. But soon after, Alibaba, Morg, and Aladdin all get split up when trying to leave the dungeon. Aladdin soon wakes up in the Koga clan village, a once strong nation that in some years has fallen and have been reduced to a clan. But nonetheless, he is treated with open arms by the people and their leader Baba, who acts as a grandmother to Aladdin. While there, he meets Hakue Ren, a dungeon capturer like Alibaba and princess of the Ko Empire, which is one of the biggest and most dominant empires in the setting of Magi. Hakue asks the Koga clan to join the Ko Empire, but they refuse to do so. After a sneak attack on Baba, they eventually go to battle, and some shit happens with characters that don't really matter in Magi. But they decide to make peace and join the Ko Empire because they would probably get their shit pushed in if they didn't. When Aladdin leaves the Koga village, he travels to Balbad and finally meets up with Morg. And then they meet Sinbad, a major character in Magi and the King of Sindria, who's known across the world basically because he's a god in the series with having 7 djinns while most people only have 1. There, Aladdin and Morg finally find Alibaba in Balbad, who's now part of the Fog Troop, a group that wants to fight the injustice in Balbad. Okay, let's pause for a sec. Now, this is where I feel the series goes good and bad in some ways. On one side, this arc is a perfect adaptation of the manga, which really isn't saying much since an anime should be adapting their source material well, and actually gives some backstory on a character. But on the other hand, this arc is so long and tedious, in a sense because it's mainly political, and the antagonist Ahmad, who's Alibaba's brother and king of Balbad, isn't well thought of and doesn't really have a motive other than wanting to get rich. Also, Alibaba becomes the biggest pussy in this arc, mainly due to seeing his former friend Qasim go to the dark side and his conflicted past. Afterwards, we finally get to meet the second Magi, Judar, or Judal. Let's go with Judar. And both he and Aladdin have a great looking battle, but Aladdin comes out on top due to having Ugo sacrifice his life. But before Ugo can kill Judar, he is rescued by Kogukyu Ren, another dungeon capturer and princess of the Ko Empire. After finding out that Ahmad wants to sell the citizens to slavery, Alibaba vows to stop it. Qasim thinks the best way is to go to war with them, while Alibaba wants to talk it out and make peace. Since it doesn't seem to go in Alibaba's favor, he goes to train his jinn so he can get stronger and promises to stop Qasim when the two collide. When the two confront each other, Qasim commits seppuku and becomes a black jinn. With Qasim big and black, the battle of Alibaba vs. Qasim begins. No physical damage seems to work on Qasim with his newly gained healing abilities. With nothing looking positive, Aladdin comes to help Alibaba with his spell, the Wisdom of Solomon. Using Wisdom of Solomon, Aladdin absorbs the rook inside of his body. He explains to Alibaba that he has to pierce Qasim with his sword. When Alibaba is not sure, Aladdin reassures him. Alibaba manages to stab Qasim. Then, Qasim absorbs Alibaba. Aladdin uses his Wisdom of Solomon to tap into Judar, who collapses after remembering some of his dark past. With Alibaba inside Qasim, Alibaba is able to change Qasim's thinking by the power of words. But too late, as Qasim succumbs to the Black Jinn and dies. Finally, we end the Balbad arc, and get a touching scene at the end that made me cry, maybe because I'm a little bitch. Several months after the Balbad arc, we find everyone in Sindria, and finally get to meet the 8 generals of Sinbad. Sinbad's household members include Jafar, Masrur, Sharkan, Spartos, Yamraiha, Hina-Ho-Ho, Drakan, and Pisti. 3 of them, Yamraiha, Sharkan, and Masrur, also act as mentors to Aladdin, Alibaba, and Morg. We also learn about Al-Qaeda, actually Al-Thaman, the group behind Balbad's crisis and a big antagonist in the Magi series. With following days passing, Hakuyu Ren arrives, another big character in Magi who is a prince of the Ko Empire and the dungeon capture of Zagan. With Hakuyu and Sinbad talking, Hakuyu reveals his main objective of wanting to destroy the Ko Empire, and hoping to get Sinbad's help when the time comes. Sinbad, unable to give a definitive answer, tells him to spend some time with Alibaba and the others as he thinks they are similar. And then, this is where Magi starts to get bad and swerve off course. Ithnan, an Al-Thaman member, attacks Sinbad and Alibaba by cursing them. Sinbad says in order to lift the curse they need the Jinn Zagan, and he cannot enter the dungeon as he has too many Jinns. With Aladdin, Alibaba, and Morg sent out to conquer Zagan by Sinbad, Hakuyu tags along with them and they enter the dungeon Zagan. With them entering the dungeon, Zagan notices Alibaba and Aladdin, a dungeon capture in Magi, and thus increases the difficulty level. Hakuyu first has some troubles keeping up with the group, but after an encouraging speech by Alibaba, his morale is raised. After reaching the end and Morg taking out Zagan, the group is met up with Ithnan and the other members of Al-Thaman, Dunya and Izak. So we have Morg unconscious, and Hakuyu looking after her, and Alibaba and Aladdin vs Dunya and Izak. The battle here is considerably shorter than it was in the manga, and is lackluster. After finding out Dunya was a former princess and looking into her memories, Alibaba falls into depravity due to the curse. Now, this is a huge gripe I have with this adaptation. After seeing Qasim turn into a black Jinn, Alibaba promises to never fall into depravity like that. This anime-only scene contradicts what Alibaba says and is all about. A very kind, caring, and helpful man with rather talking things out than going to battle. This ultimately ruins his character and makes a mockery out of this series. Other things this anime missed out on include Zagan picking Hakuyu as his vessel, Hakuyu losing his arm to a snake bite from Ithnan in the manga, rather than it getting cut off by Izak in the anime. And a huge one, where more Al-Thaman members attack Aladdin's group when they clear the dungeon only to be saved by the 8 generals in the manga, but instead we get the 8 generals fighting them alone, which misses out on a huge scene at Masrur going apeshit when Morg gets punched. But anyways, Aladdin saves Alibaba by using Wisdom of Solomon, and Ithnan escapes, only to be turned into a Matryoshka doll and then broken like glass by Sinbad. With the final episode, we get everyone leaving the dungeon, and clips of what they're going to do and some scenes of major future characters that'll appear in Season 2. Okay, so being a huge fan of the manga, I was really excited to see that this was announced. But after finishing the series, I have mixed feelings on it. With the whole anime-only scenes ruining characters and not giving enough information to the viewer, this isn't really a good adaptation. There's some quality in this anime, like the cardboard cutouts and Long Arm Morg, but they get fixed in the Blu-rays. Well, not Long Arm Morg. But with the bad comes the good. One thing that really stuck out to me was the soundtrack. Shiro Sagisu, most known for his Evangelion and Bleach soundtracks, really sets the setting well with the Arabian theme music and very nice battle music for the action scenes. The comedy is also pretty well done. It's nothing too forced and the scenes are quick. For my score, I'd give Magi The Labyrinth of Magic a 7.25 Alibaba's Suffering out of 10. The comedy and soundtrack is great, including the openings and endings, but this adaptation isn't the most faithful, but it still gets the job done. If I hadn't read the manga prior to watching this, I most likely would have given it an 8 or something higher. But knowing they missed out on some key scenes, it's heartbreaking. If you're looking to get into the Magi series, which I recommend if you like shonens, I'd advise to read the manga first up to chapter 115, which is where season 1 ends, and then watch it if you feel like it. At the time of this review, Magi is currently airing its second season, and oh boy do I have some words to say about it. Anyways, thanks for watching, and hopefully my next video won't take as long.